There is a swimming pool named...
Before the world drew lines between reality and dreams, before the sea became a boundary instead of a path, there was a boy, a boat, a tiger, and a story that defied belief. It is a journey through faith, fear, and the boundless power of the human spirit. This is the extraordinary legend of life of Pi. In the vibrant city of Pondicherry, India, a boy is born into a world steeped in color, belief, and contradiction. His given name, Paiseen Molitor Patel, ties him to distant waters and forgotten memories. But children are cruel with names, and Paiseen chooses to redefine himself, boldly shortening it to Pi, a small, elegant symbol that captures something infinite. Even as a boy, Pi refuses to be confined by others' definitions. He carves his own identity, one decision, one story at a time. Pi's childhood is not ordinary. He is a seeker, a soul hungry for understanding. In a world divided by rigid faiths, Pi dares to embrace them all. Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, not as conflicting truths, but as parts of a greater, shimmering mystery. While other boys chase games and mischief, Pi chases meaning, kneeling in temples, churches, and mosques, letting each prayer stitch itself into the fabric of who he is. To Pi, faith is not a matter of choosing sides. It is an ocean too vast to be contained by one shore. Pi's world blooms inside the walls of his family's zoo, a microcosm of life itself. Tigers, zebras, orangutans, hyenas, each creature teaching Pi lessons about survival, about territory, about the delicate balances of nature. His father, pragmatic and stern, teaches caution. Animals are not friends. They are dangerous, driven by instinct, not affection. Yet Pi, with his endless curiosity, sees something more, a divine spark flickering even in the most feral of eyes. In the cages of the zoo, Pi learns the paradox of life, beauty and danger, wonder and brutality, existing side by side. Among the zoo's residents, none capture Pi's imagination more than the great Bengal tiger named Richard Parker, a creature of grace, power, and lethal beauty. Their first encounter is seared into Pi's memory, a terrifying lesson orchestrated by his father, forcing him to witness the raw, merciless kill of a goat. Animals are not your friends, his father says. Respect them or be destroyed. But Pi senses something deeper beneath the tiger's golden gaze. Not cruelty, but an ancient, unknowable spirit, majestic and wild beyond human understanding. Trouble brews in India's political winds, and Pi's father makes a fateful decision. They will leave Pondicherry behind, sell the animals, and seek a new life in Canada. Pi faces the prospect with a bittersweet heart, the excitement of adventure, the sorrow of leaving everything familiar. They board the Japanese cargo ship Simpson, carrying with them dreams, hopes, and the weight of unseen destiny. As the ship cuts across the endless Pacific, Pi cannot know that soon, the ocean will become his whole world, and everything he knows will be swallowed by it. The Pacific, once a silent companion, turns against them. A monstrous storm descends without mercy. Black clouds boil above, waves rise like living mountains. The Tsimsum groans and shudders beneath nature's wrath. Crew members scream orders lost in the howling wind. Pi, thrown from his bunk, stumbles into a world ripped apart by water and fury. Somewhere in the chaos, he loses sight of his family. The ship is dying, torn apart piece by piece, and with it, the life Pi once knew. When the sun rises, it finds Pi adrift in a small lifeboat, surrounded by endless blue. The wreckage of the Tsimsum vanishes into the depths, along with his family, his home, and every certainty he had ever known. Pi's companions are not human. A wounded zebra, a crazed hyena, an orangutan named Orange Juice clinging to a broken crate, and somewhere beneath the tarp, unseen yet palpable, the tiger Richard Parker. In the vast emptiness of the ocean, Pi is no longer a boy. He is a castaway, a story yet unfinished. At first, Pi clings to the hope of rescue, scanning the empty horizon day after day. But soon, harsher realities assert themselves. The hyena reveals its true nature, savage and unrelenting. It attacks, kills, first the wounded zebra, then the orangutan. Pi, powerless, watches the brutality unfold, a front-row witness to the brutal rules of survival. The lifeboat is no longer a sanctuary. It is an arena, and lurking beneath the shadows, Richard Parker waits, silent, patient, and far more dangerous than the hyena ever was. When Richard Parker finally emerges, regal and lethal, Pi realizes that he must act, not to defeat the tiger, but to coexist with it. Survival demands more than courage. It demands strategy. Pi builds a small raft tethered to the lifeboat, a fragile extension of his will to live. He fishes. He gathers rainwater. He learns to command respect, using a whistle and bold gestures to establish fragile boundaries. In taming Richard Parker, Pi tames his own fear, forging a precarious partnership between man and beast in the infinite prison of the Pacific. Days stretch into weeks, weeks into months. Under the merciless sun and the endless stars, Pi and Richard Parker drift together through the desert of water. Hunger gnaws. Thirst burns. Madness whispers from the edges of the mind. Yet amid the suffering, there are moments of astonishing beauty. Flying fish leaping in silver arcs, bioluminescent oceans glowing with secret life, thunderstorms crackling like the breath of gods. In these moments, Pi understands. Life is both savage and sublime, cruel and miraculous. And survival is not merely a struggle of the body, but of the soul. As supplies dwindle, Pi faces the harshest teacher, hunger. It strips away illusions, forces choices once unthinkable. He kills fish with trembling hands, offering prayers of gratitude and sorrow for every life taken. Each act of survival chips away at the boy he once was, forging something harder, more primal. Yet even as he adapts, he clings to ritual, sharing water with Richard Parker, marking the days with knots on a rope, small anchors against the tidal pull of despair. Survival is no longer just about the body. It is about preserving a flicker of humanity. Some nights, when the stars are fierce and the ocean smooth as glass, Pi drifts between waking and dreaming. He sees impossible things, the shimmering face of his mother, whispering comfort, a glowing forest floating across the waves, creatures with eyes like lanterns beneath the water. Whether they are hallucinations or miracles, Pi cannot say. In this vast cathedral of sea and sky, the boundary between reality and imagination blurs. Faith becomes not a choice, but a necessity, a raft built from belief, holding him above the dark currents of madness. One day, salvation seems to appear, a strange floating island of lush vegetation, teeming with meerkats, offering sweet water and abundant food. Pi and Richard Parker feast, rest, and heal, but the island holds secrets. At night, its pools turn acidic, consuming all life they touch. The island itself is carnivorous, a trap disguised as paradise. Realizing the danger, Pi makes the agonizing decision to leave. Comfort without freedom is another kind of death. Better to risk the ocean's merciless embrace than surrender to an easy, empty survival. After countless days adrift, Pi's body and spirit near breaking. His skin burns, his bones ache, his dreams blur into delirium. Then, at the edge of consciousness, land appears, a jagged line against the endless blue. Mexico, solid earth, civilization, rescue. Pi collapses onto the sand, sobbing not just from relief, but from grief. Richard Parker, his sole companion through the long nightmare, steps onto the jungle's edge, and without a backward glance, disappears into the wild. No farewell, no acknowledgement, just the silent severing of the most profound bond Pi has ever known. than innocence. It has cost him connection. Love, trust, companionship, all sacrificed at the altar of life. Yet even in his sorrow, Pi understands. Richard Parker's departure is not betrayal. It is the way of the wild, the way of survival. Bonds forged in desperation cannot hold once freedom calls. And Pi, like the tiger, must find a way to move forward. In the hospital where Pi recovers, officials arrive. Insurance men seeking a logical explanation for the shipwreck. They listen politely as Pi recounts his incredible story. Lifeboats, tigers, floating islands. But disbelief hangs heavy in the room, thicker than the hospital's stale air. They demand facts, tangible causes, a narrative stripped of wonder. Pi, frail and hollow-eyed, understands. Some truths are too wild for the world to accept. What matters now is not proving what happened, but surviving it. Faced with skepticism, Pi offers another version of events, darker, stripped of allegory. In this telling, the animals become people. The hyena, the brutal cook. The orangutan, his gentle mother. The zebra, a wounded sailor. Survival becomes murder, horror, and cannibalism. It is a story of cruelty and human savagery, without tigers or miracles. It is, perhaps, the story they want to hear. A story where everything makes grim sense, where suffering has no meaning beyond endurance. The officials nod, scribble notes. They prefer this story. It fits their world. As Pi finishes, this will shimmer only in dreams. These questions matter less than what the memories mean. In the heart's deepest places, truth and story intertwine, becoming something greater than fact. They become a mythology of survival. Though Richard Parker never speaks, never offers gestures of affection, Pi comes to realize that love can exist even without understanding. Their bond, forged by necessity, tested by fear, deepened by shared suffering, is real. In the silent companionship of survival, Pi finds something profound, a recognition of the other, a respect for life beyond human terms. The tiger teaches Pi that love is not possession or domination. It is coexistence, fragile and sacred. In loving Richard Parker, Pi learns to love the wild, unknowable world itself. The hardest lesson Pi learns is that love does not guarantee permanence. Richard Parker's departure on the Mexican shore cuts deeper than any wound. No farewell, no acknowledgement, only a silent vanishing into the jungle. At first, Pi feels abandoned, betrayed, but slowly, painfully, he understands. True love does not demand gratitude or recognition. It demands only the courage to let go, to accept that not all bonds are meant to last, and that the beauty of connection lies partly in its fragility. Pi's story offers no easy answers. It offers a choice, a story filled with wonder, hardship, miracles, and a tiger, or a story filled with brutality, hopelessness, and human cruelty. Both versions end the same way. Pi survives, but one version nourishes the spirit, reminds us of beauty amidst suffering. The other leaves us hollow. Pi gently asks us, as he asked the officials, to choose the better story. Not because it is easier, but because it is braver. Because in choosing wonder over despair, we reclaim something vital, our humanity. The Pacific Ocean is more than a backdrop to Pi's survival. It is a teacher. It teaches patience, as days bleed into each other without rescue. It teaches humility, as Pi realizes his insignificance against nature's endless, indifferent beauty. It teaches respect as he watches life, from flying fish to massive whales, thrive and struggle in the same merciless waters. The ocean is Pi's enemy, his sanctuary, his mirror. In its ever-shifting waves, he glimpses the truth of existence. Beauty and terror, hope and despair, inseparable and eternal. Life aboard the lifeboat is a delicate dance of boundaries. Pi must constantly negotiate his place between thirst and drowning, hunger and starvation, fear and boldness. His fragile truce with Richard Parker rests on mutual need and cautious respect. The raft he builds becomes not just a means of survival, but a metaphor, an island of fragile order floating on a sea of chaos. Every moment is precarious. Every decision matters. In this fragile balance, Pi discovers a deeper strength within himself, a resilience he never knew he possessed. Alone at sea, Pi clings to memories of his family, their voices, their faces, their small daily kindnesses, his mother's laughter, his father's stern wisdom, his brother's mischievous grin. These fragments become lifelines, anchoring him to a world beyond the endless horizon. In dreams, he returns to Pondicherry, to the zoo, to the smells of spice and the warmth of familiar hands. These memories are bittersweet, reminders of what he has lost, but also of what he fights to honor. His survival is not just for himself, it is for them too. More than the tiger, more than hunger or thirst, it is fear that Pi must battle most fiercely. Fear paralyzes the mind, poisons the spirit. It whispers that rescue will never come, that survival is a fool's dream. But Pi learns to see fear clearly, to name it, confront it, master it. He understands that fear is not a force of nature, but a force within. And once it is faced, it loses its power. In defeating fear, Pi does not merely survive. He triumphs. He claims his right to live, even in the teeth of despair. By the time Pi reaches land, he is no longer the boy who boarded the Tsimtsum. He has been remade by salt, sun, hunger, and hope. His soul has been shaped by story, by the tales he told himself to survive, by the tiger who kept him anchored to life, by the invisible hand of faith that carried him through impossible nights. Survival was never just about enduring. It was about transformation. Pi steps onto the shore of a new life, carrying within him a story bigger than pain, bigger than fear, a story stitched together with wonder. Survival always demands a price, and Pi pays it in full. His innocence is the first casualty, swept away by necessity and fear. The ocean strips him of illusions, leaving only raw humanity. Vulnerable, fierce, unbreakable. But even as he compromises his body, he refuses to compromise his soul. Every choice, every fish he kills, every boundary he enforces with Richard Parker weighs on him. Yet through guilt and grief, he holds on to a sliver of compassion, a refusal to surrender completely to savagery. Survival shapes him, but it does not define him. Richard Parker is more than Pi's companion. He is his silent witness. In the tiger's unblinking gaze, Pi sees judgment, reflection, and the unspoken acknowledgement of their shared ordeal. They survive together, yet remain eternally separate. Two beings linked by necessity, divided by nature. Richard Parker's silence forces Pi to confront himself. There are no conversations to distract him, no reassurances to dull the edge of terror. Only the constant reminder that survival is a solitary burden, and that understanding sometimes lies beyond language, in the raw communion of existence itself. At every turn, Pi could have surrendered to despair. When the ship sank, when the hyena killed, when hunger gnawed at his sanity. Yet each time, he chose hope, stubborn, irrational, luminous. Hope is not easy. It demands a daily act of defiance against the evidence of the eyes and the weight of pain. But it is hope that keeps Pi building, keeps him fishing, keeps him believing that tomorrow might bring rescue, or rain, or simply one more sunrise. In choosing hope, Pi chooses life, not as a passive victim, but as a relentless creator of meaning. By the end of the journey, Pi realizes that Richard Parker represents more than survival. He represents a part of Pi himself, the fierce, primal force that refused to die, that fought and hunted and endured. Without Richard Parker, Pi would have surrendered to despair. The tiger kept him alert, kept him human by forcing him to remain animal enough to live. In taming the tiger, Pi tamed his own terror. In surviving alongside it, he accepted the wildness within himself and learned to honor it rather than deny it. On the shores of Mexico, when Richard Parker steps into the jungle without a backward glance, Pi's heart shatters anew. He had hoped for a final moment, a look, a pause, a silent acknowledgement of their bond. But wildness owes no farewells. Richard Parker disappears into the green without ceremony, leaving Pi to mourn not just a companion, but a part of himself now lost. Yet even in this pain, Pi finds a quiet wisdom. True bonds do not need closure. Some stories are meant to end in silence, leaving behind echoes stronger than any spoken word. Stepping onto solid ground, Pi is no longer the boy who once gazed at animals with wonder behind zoo fences. The world he returns to is smaller, duller. Its boundaries no longer defined by imagination, but by rules, doubt, and survival. Yet Pi carries within him a world vaster than any city could hold. A world of faith, monsters, miracles, and quiet triumphs. Though exhausted and scarred, he knows he has been transformed forever. He has glimpsed both the savage heart of nature and its astonishing grace, and survived. As Pi recounts his story to skeptical listeners, he sees their faces harden against the improbable. They seek neat explanations, prefer the brutal version with murder and madness. It is easier, safer, to believe in cruelty than in wonder. Pi does not argue. He understands that belief is a mirror. It reflects the heart of the one who looks. Some will see magic, others only violence. The story we choose says as much about us as it does about the world. Faced with two narratives, one harsh and one miraculous, Pi asks simply, which is the better story? This is the essence of faith, of imagination, of humanity's endless need for meaning. Reality may be harsh, but story can redeem it. Pain may be inevitable, but wonder is a choice. In choosing the better story, we do not deny suffering. We rise above it. We make life not just something endured, but something celebrated. Pi's survival is not merely a triumph of body over nature. It is a triumph of spirit over despair. His journey becomes a testament that beauty can exist alongside brutality, that faith can coexist with fear, that love can survive even when hope seems lost. The ocean did not drown Pi's soul. It revealed its depth. Richard Parker did not destroy his humanity. He sharpened it into something fierce and luminous. Life, Pi learns, is not a single truth. It is many stories woven together, each one waiting to be chosen. In the end, Pi's story, like the sea, stretches beyond horizons. It is a tale of impossible survival. Yes, but more than that, it is a celebration of belief in the face of the unknown. Whether filled with tigers or terrible men, with miracles or grim realities, life itself remains a journey of faith. We are all castaways in our own ways, afloat between certainty and mystery. And perhaps, like Pi, we must each choose to believe. Not because it is easy, but because it is beautiful.